Hey everybody.
Hey, we did it!
Getting set up.
We did it!
Does it show up on yours?
Let me refresh my screen here. Yep.
Alright.
Going deep with the underground, live, now. I'm going to mute this.
Welcome to Going Deep number 2. So, as you can see, once again, it's just Scott and I. No Big Daddy tonight. So he had some other things that he needed to take care of this evening and wasn't able to get down here to record with us.
We'll call it Family Matters.
Wasn't that Friday night?
That was on Friday night. That was Urkel, right?
Yeah.
Family Matters is Urkel.
Yeah. So anyway, unfortunately...
I'm not nearly as drunk as I usually am.
Well, that's been kind of a specific effort, knowing that we'd be doing these live, to not be quite as intoxicated as we get.
Can people tell? Can you tell when you watch the shows that we seem a little intoxicated? As Rick just used that big word.
Anyway, so we were hoping to. There is a way we found out that you can do Zoom calls through the live setup, but we're not there yet. We've got to figure that out. So
we're working on
we were hoping to have him via Zoom.
We are working on
that. But that's not going to happen this episode anyway. But we know that there's going to be episodes where not all of us can be here, and we'll just have to keep plugging away, and hopefully we'll be here, all three of us, as many times as possible. But, you know, things come up. Other things are going on besides filming Going Deep underground.
We have a football game on tonight. We were watching a little football. We were doing a little football gambling going on, getting that stuff worked out. So we're finally here. We're on the clock, so let's jump in and let's get to it.
So we've been discussing what we wanted to cover in number 2. So in Going Deep number 1 was more just a general informational episode to talk about what we're going to be doing with Going Deep and some of the topics that we want to cover. And we thought what would be a good transition from what's that other show we do? The Underground. We thought what would be a good transition from the Underground. You've heard us talk about the law of attraction, and even times where we don't mention it by name, we're talking about it pretty regularly. And so we thought that would be a good transition into Going Deep, to have our first full episode, first topic be on the law of attraction.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that is a regular conversation that I'm having. I know you talk about it with the people that you work with for your job. I work as a coach, so I talk about it on my end as well. And it's something that my wife and I talk about with our kids. We're very aware of it. And so it's one of those things that I wouldn't say, because Going Deep is definitely going to be a little bit more...
Let's just say we didn't want to jump in to the deep end.
Yeah.
We wanted to ease people into different topics we're going to be getting into. And we didn't want to get into...
too heavy.
The lizard people living in the core of the earth or things like that on the first episode.
This is a lot out there.
A little more mellow. And one of the things I was just going to bring up is how much more widely known and recognized the law of attraction is now. I mean, most people, even if they don't know a lot about it, have certainly heard of it. But back when we first got into it, I don't know that I'd ever heard of it.
I'm trying to think of when I really first fully started, because I remember the first time I heard of the law of attraction was back in 2006. So 2006...
2006, I was still here, so where did you hear about it?
Oh yeah, no, it was before you and I lived together. We moved in together in I got divorced in 2004. I got my own place that that July of 2004. You moved in with me in March of 2005. So before you moved in with me, this was 2005. I mean, that was probably like one of the worst times of my life. I just remember getting up in the morning and looking in the mirror and just staring in the mirror. Like, because I was living in Salt Lake, driving down to Provo about 45 minutes. I was working as an operations manager for Dillard's, hated my job, hated my life. I was divorced. I had a son who I had shared custody with my ex-wife with. So we were going every other week. And I'm commuting down to Provo, working with the biggest dick on the planet. The store manager of that store was just the biggest asshole. We just didn't get along. I'm 30, he's 40. And I just remember just being at the bottom. Like just being at the bottom of the existence is what it felt like. So one day I'm walking through Target in Fort Union. And I'm going through the store. And on the end cap in the book section is this book called The Secret. And, you know, they had like a sign next to it. And it said that it was one of Oprah's Book of the Month Club. And I was like, well, if Oprah's talking about it, then I mean, it's got to be something important. And I picked it up and I looked at the back of the book and it was like, learn the secret to unlocking life's potential, abundance and wealth and yada, yada, yada. Well, at the time I was just like, all right, you know, I mean, couldn't hurt.
And real quick, for those who don't know, you know, I know you're the same way. I've credited The Secret along with Michael O'Shea's book that we've talked about in the Underground as being two of the most life-changing books from a spiritual standpoint.
Yeah.
For me. But what I was going to say, for people who don't know, The Secret is by Rhonda Byrne, who wrote
The Magic.
The Magic.
Uh-huh. We haven't talked about...
I've got it backwards. I was thinking The Magic. I was thinking you were talking about The Magic.
No.
So most people do know The Secret.
The Magic was the third book that she wrote. But The Secret was the first one. And so The Secret was like the first time that they were really taking law of attraction, because Napoleon Hill had written about it back in the 1920s. And Malcolm Maltz, I think that's his name, who wrote the book Psycho-Cybernetics, that was written in the 60s. And he was a psychologist and he wrote about autosuggestion is what he was calling it back then. They hadn't called it the law of attraction, you know, up to that point.
So real quick, before you get back to The Secret, explain how would you define the law of attraction for people who don't really...
Okay, so I mean, it's there's so much to it, but really it's understanding that everything on this planet emits a frequency. Everything is made up of cells on this earth. This desk is made up of cells. This beer can is made up of cells. It's just all protons and neutrons and subatomic energy that vibrates.
So if you looked at them with a strong enough
microscope,
you'd see all the same things.
It's not matter. It's these particles of energy, and those particles of energy vibrate and they emit a frequency. I believe it was Einstein. I've read the quote from different people before, but he says if you match the vibration to the frequency that you want, you will attract it into your life. So you've probably heard people say that like attracts like, or thoughts become things. Well, this is in essence just very basic beginner level of law of attraction.
And so now to segue back to The Secret, I'm sure I was the same as what you were probably prior to this point in terms of what I thought about this kind of stuff. It was all, we use the phrase hippy dippy bullshit.
Let me get to what happened. Because I bought the book.
Well, I'm right, and I'm just setting it up as that's kind of where our mindset was, that this is stuff that's just mystical, crazy bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, if you've watched any of our stuff before, if you've watched any of our episodes from the Underground, we talk about, at least I know I talk about in my episode, how when I left the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, when I quit being religious, I gave up. I quit. I didn't believe in anything except this is it. This is life. You live, you die, you're done. But I'm experiencing just this low moment in my life, and I guess I was just open. I was open to considering anything. So I remember I bought the book, and I'm sure at the time it was a stretch to just buy the book, I was struggling in my life financially at that point. And I bought the book and I got home.
I was going to say, not just a stretch as far as your mindset goes of buying a book like this, prior to this time of your life.
Oh, just being able to...
But also like a monetary...
That's what I'm saying.
I know. I'm saying it was
to be able to have money to buy a book. Like, I was just like... I mean, I was making decent money, but my relationship, and here's where the law of attraction was at play in my life. My relationship, my thoughts, my very vibration about money was just negative. And so it was, because I was an operations manager for a large retail company. I was making decent money for being an only a single guy. I wasn't paying alimony or anything like that. I wasn't paying child support. So I get the book, I get it home. I'm so excited to see what Oprah's talking about, and I start reading it. And you remember that scene in A Christmas Story when Ralphie gets the little Orphan Annie decoder pen?
Don't forget to drink your
and
own
he
tea.
runs upstairs and he's so excited to read it. And that was kind of what it was like for me. I was super excited. And I open it up and I'm like, hey, what's the fucking secret? Tell me what the secret is. What do I need to know so I can have wealth and abundance and happiness? And I read that it's your thoughts, that it's you, that it's the focus, it's what you're putting energy into. And I remember laying in my bed and just throwing it across the room and being like, are you serious? The secret is my thoughts. It's me. And I was just like, this is bullshit. And I threw it away. And I didn't pick it back up. That was in 2005. I didn't pick it back up, that whole philosophy of understanding law of attraction, until 2012. However, one of the things that it, talked about doing was creating like a vision board. And at the time, this was 2005, I remember I wanted the 2005 Mustang. It was the first time they kind of brought back that older body style of the Mustang, kind of more the square look. It had been rounded out. And I remember tearing it out and being like, I'm just going to put it on my fridge. And I put a picture of that car in my fridge. Well, by 2008, I was driving a 2005 Mustang. Now, that Mustang didn't just fall out of the sky, but because that image had been on my fridge, and I remember I was at work, I was working at Universal Accounting, and I got an email from my credit union saying, hey, you qualify for a car loan. You should, check out and see if there's any cars that we have access to that you might be interested in. So I was like, let's just put in a 2005 Mustang, because that had been what I'd been focusing about and talking about and thinking about. And I drove home that night with a 2005 Mustang. And I just remember being like, this is crazy, because I remember having this on my fridge. So anyways, 2012 is when the Michael Logier book that you just made reference to about the law of attraction came into my vibration. And I just remember going, okay, I've read about The Secret. I've read Psycho-Cybernetics. At this point, I had read Think and Grow Rich, or I'd read portions of Think and Grow Rich, which is just all so focused on dominant thoughts. He says in the book that he talks about this ether, and he's describing the universe, and he says in this ether there is just this power, and there is just this force, and he says what it does is it magnetizes whatever your dominant thoughts are into your vibration. And he says it doesn't matter if it's a positive thought, a constructive thought, or a destructive thought. Whatever the dominant thought is what's going to be what will attract the people and the forces and the circumstances into your life. So having read that, now reading Michael Logier's book, I read it and I just go, okay, it's almost 2013. I'm definitely in a much better position than I was back in 2005. At this point, Jen and I had been together for, almost 4 going on 5 years. And I just was like, okay, you know what? Let's test it. Let's just see if this law of attraction is real. Like, and I almost kind of went about going, I want to prove it wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of want to just do everything that it says to do, and I'm going to prove it wrong. And so it was unbelievable what happened.
So there's kind of three things I want to touch upon in the 15 minutes or so we have left.
Okay.
You just sort of dropped a bomb there and just left it with, it's amazing what happened next. So
Well, I wanted to see what you were going to say next. So.
we need to finish that thought up. But there's a couple things. First off, you talked about how the car didn't just magically appear. And I was thinking before you said that, a lot of people are going to still think as they hear us talking about law of attraction that it's just hippy-dippy bullshit. And just because I think about a Lamborghini every day, a Lamborghini's not going to magically show up in my my driveway. So talk a little bit about that in terms of the fact that it's not just about your thoughts.
Well, no, it is your thoughts. It's 100% about your thoughts because your thoughts influence your emotions. Your emotions influence your actions.
There's other things that, I mean, we have to set intent. We can't just sit on our couch and think about a Lamborghini all day.
Right. But if you keep thinking, I'm never going to get a Lamborghini, you're right. That will happen. So it has to become, I want a Lamborghini. So what do I need to do to get a Lamborghini? So when Mountain America said, hey, check out the cars, I didn't go, well, let's look at the 2005 Ford Taurus. I went, well, I've been thinking about a Mustang for a long time. That's what I've been focusing on. Let's just see if that's even in my wheelhouse of possibility for me to be able to go do it. So I found one that was available, scheduled a time to go on and test drive it, went in, did the work, signed up for the loan, got the loan approved, and I'm driving home going, holy shit, I'm driving home in a 2005 Mustang. This is legit. This is real.
So, and that was kind of my point, is that there's some action there as well.
Well, that's the big misconception that people have, is that, like you said, it's not going to just fall out of the sky. But if your dominant thought is getting out of debt, if your dominant thought is finding a healthy relationship. But see, this is where the law of attraction, and this is where I've really tried to focus on the students and the clients that I've worked with when I've explained the law of attraction to them. I don't know if you remember, but like in one of the first episodes, we had a viewer that said something about, look out, the law of attraction, that's another prosperity doctrine. That's a doctrine about prosperity. Yep. It can be, but the law of attraction is also a doctrine of lack and struggle. Because if, like Napoleon says, it doesn't matter that the law of attraction there's not a consciousness there. We're not talking about God, okay? It doesn't respond, it doesn't differentiate between, I know Rick doesn't really mean that he hates being poor. I know he doesn't want to keep being poor. The focus is, I feel poor.
That doesn't recognize the don'ts.
Right.
All it recognizes is the main thought.
The dominant
which is
focus.
Being poor.
The dominant focus. So when I was single, after being divorced, and I was dating people that just were so similar to my ex-wife. And I was like, gosh, what the hell? Why do I keep dating my ex-wife? And it was because whenever I talked about dating, I talked about the characteristics of my ex-wife. I don't want to date somebody like my ex-wife. I don't want to date somebody that doesn't want to be a good mom. I don't want to date somebody, and the universe doesn't hear the don'ts. And this is an example that he uses, Michael, in the book. He says, don't think of an elephant. What's the first thing that you think about? You think of the elephant, because it's the dominant focus. You're going to say something.
I was just going to say, so it's all about your dominant thoughts. It's whatever your dominant thought is, positive or negative. That's what you're working towards attracting back to you, and it's happening whether you are doing it consciously or not. So the whole thing is learning about it and learning how to utilize it. So you're using it purposefully instead of it just happening to you.
And I think that was one of the breakthroughs that I had, was I realized that, holy cow, I am really good at the subconscious use of the law of attraction. You know, by the time we're 35 years old, 95% of what we do is subconscious. It's just response. It's just automatic, pre-programmed thinking. And that's where that subconscious use of the law of attraction had been biting me in the ass and bites most people in the ass, because somebody just says money. And what's your first response when somebody says your checking account? Well, back then, if you'd have said your checking account, I would have instantly...
Back when you were afraid to check your account because you didn't know.
Yeah. Like, I remember being like, oh my
fear.
gosh, I need to know how much is in there, but I'm so worried. Or do I even have enough money to buy this book right now?
It's worry, it's fear, it's negativity.
And what that does, again, going back to that whole, the cells are vibrating. Our cells vibrate because of the emotion that we have. And if the emotion around money, that automatic paradigm, is fear and lack and frustration, and your cells, if all I have to say is tell me about your checking account, and you go right into that zone of freaking out and panicking and lack,
just tense, and
your cells are now vibrating that frequency out. And based on what Napoleon Hill says, you are attracting subconsciously the people and the forces and the circumstances that are in harmony with that.
So now that you've gained that knowledge, so now go back to your cliffhanger.
Oh, 2013.
You said it was amazing how things changed.
Yeah, 2013.
Or what happened.
So I went and said, okay, I'm going to test this. And this is back when we were working together for Universal. And I've got journals that I started writing in. I started keeping track of proof of abundance, because for me it was money. I wanted to just change my relationship with money, and go back to these journals, and I'm now keeping track of every little penny that's coming in as far as abundance. I'm counting somebody buying pizza for lunch in the office and inviting me to have some pizza and going, that was abundance. Now I'm starting to focus on money is coming into my vibration. And this is back when we were traveling every weekend on the road. And I remember going out the first seminar in January of 2013. And I wish I had my proof of abundance journal. If I'd have thought, I'd brought it down here. But the standard that we had for our department was we had to go out and sell a program. We had a bookkeeping program we could sell, a tax program, a marketing program, or a QuickBooks program. So every weekend we had to enroll 3 students for 6 programs, and one of those programs had to be paid in full. And the first seminar, I was in like Columbia, South Carolina. Not a high producing city. Like you remember back being on the road. It wasn't a really big producing city. But I had 15 people come to the class, 5 people enrolled for 10 units, and 3 of them were paid in full. 3 of the contracts were paid in full. And I just remember being like, holy cow. That's like incredible. Hang on a second. I'm going to go take care of this really fast.
So one of the things where I was going with earlier was that this isn't just about thinking about something and having it magically appear for you. There's things that need to go along with that, and a big part of it is just the intent, your intention, and what you're putting your energy and focus into. So, talking about the whole bank account and stuff, and thinking about lack and fear and worry, it's now become training yourself to focus on the abundance.
And that was really...
And so now as you start doing that, as you're now starting to think more along the lines of abundance, now you start seeing these things happen to fall in line with it.
I'm training myself to see that money is actually coming in, and has been coming in all my life in different areas, in different ways. You got to see the the Southwest ticket that you're buying for your son that you had budgeted $250 and you got it for $189, you got to look at that and go, that's abundance. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's like
it's way too easy to just look past those things.
And that's what I've been doing
a
my
lot
whole
of them
life.
seem really small, but then when you start paying attention to them and adding them up, it becomes a much bigger.
So now I'm going, okay, I'm seeing evidence that by focusing my thoughts on things, I'm actually, even if I'm just training myself to have a different relationship with what's really going on, it's starting to make a difference. It's starting to make a change. So I make a vision board. I don't know if anybody's ever made a vision board before, but they're really fun, really easy to do. But I made this vision board and I was like, all right, what's like one of the big things that I want to see happen? Well, I wanted to go back to Australia. That was a big one. But I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford to take my whole family back to Australia. I can't afford plane tickets to go back there. That's crazy. But I wanted to go back to Australia. And it's the desire. And it's the absence of the doubt that it will happen. So I put a big Australian flag on this vision board. And I wanted to go on some trips with Jen. I wanted to, get away with her. At this point, we didn't have a honeymoon when we got married. We, we didn't really travel a lot together without the kids. And if we did travel with the kids, it was usually just using her mom's timeshare to go and stay someplace. I remember we'd gone to Disneyland once and we volunteered back in 2010 when Disney was like, hey, if you volunteer, we'll give you a free ticket to Disneyland. So we were doing things like that. I wish I'd have seen that as, man, that's abundance. We got these free tickets to Disneyland. But so I put traveling with Jan on there. But like one of the big things was Pearl Jam. Like I remember being in the show in 2009 in your 10 Club seats on Stone side, which is on the far right-hand side of the stage, but we were up, not in the center. And I remember my wife was sitting across the stadium from us, and I just pointed down to the people in the pit, and I was like, I want to be down in the pit. So I put front row at a Pearl Jam concert on this vision board. Well, 2013, we went and saw Pearl Jam 4 times. Once was in Wrigley Field, and then we saw them in Charlottesville, Virginia. We saw them in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we saw them in Spokane, Washington. And those 3 shows, we were front row. We drank Eddie Vedder's wine in Charlotte. Taylor got an autographed set list from Mike McCready in Spokane. And I just remember when Eddie Vedder handed the bottle of wine to us, just going, holy shit, like this was just a thought and here it is. And we didn't pay $2,500 for those tickets. We paid $80. We paid the face value for those tickets. That's how we got in there. But here we're experiencing this thing that started with this thought and no doubt that it was going to happen. And I got sent to Australia for work the following year. In 2013, I was sitting with Roger up in Canada, and we were in the middle of a breakout session. All the students at this big convention were taking classes. We were sitting at our booth, and he said, what would you think if we sent you to Australia? Would you be open to something like that? And I just remember being like, holy shit, this is the cheapest company in the world wanting to send me to Australia? Like, mind blown. So if you haven't looked into the law of attraction, if you've been that hippy-dippy bullshit kind of like, that's that law of prosperity, it's not what you think it is. It's definitely worth checking out. What would be the recommendation to get them started?
I would say probably the best explanation and the best, not only explanation, but something to help you start getting, start being actively utilizing the law of attraction is the Michael O'Shea book, The Science of the Law of Attraction, The Science of Attracting More of What You Want and Less of What You Don't. And that really explains it really well. So you get a better understanding of what the law of attraction is and how it works. But then he has you put things, he starts having you do things to become actively using it.
What was so breakthrough for me was he said, look, If I said to you, tell me what your ideal financial situation looks like, you might be able to rattle off a couple of things. But if I say, tell me what it doesn't look like, tell me what you hate, tell me what you can't stand about your relationship with money right now, bleh, like it just came out. And I've got a journal with like 25 things written down of what I don't want my relationship with money to look like. And then he just teaches a very simple quid pro quo exercise where you just go line by line and start rewriting based on what you don't want, what you really want. And I'm telling you, that's where it changed for me.
So he talks a lot about how, and so we've both worked now for a few years as coaches and teaching the law of attraction principles. And this is one of the main tools that we use that we learned from that book. But he talks about how, and I would tell this to people that I'm working with, is that this is the only time that I would ever coach or tell somebody to focus on the negative.
To make a list of shit you don't want.
It's because we're so in tune, for lack of a better word, for what we don't want with the negative, that it's much easier, like you said, to come up with that list. And then he talks about how we learn what we really want from the contrast of what we don't. And so the idea is you make this long list of things you don't want, and it can be with money, it can be relationships, and it can be I remember your story about your road trip, doing one of these for your road trip to make sure you had a seamless road trip. It can be on any aspect of your life, but you come up with this list of all the things that you don't like about that particular part of your life, and then you use those things to create the list of things that you do want. And so essentially what you're doing is you're beginning to train yourself to focus, instead of what you've been focusing on, is which all these things that you don't want with that particular thing, to now switching the focus to what you do want. So now you're just focused on positive things that you really want. And so that's really what it comes down to, is, again, shifting our mindset and our thoughts, and what our dominant focus is on is now on things that we want instead of things that we don't want.
The 95%, the subconscious brain, is just running like a computer program. It's just somebody says a word and it's connected to a memory and an emotion, and it just runs that program, and you don't even have to think about it. What we're talking about doing is disrupting that program by making a list of can't stands and turning them into must haves. You know, Jack Canfield has the same thing. I was reading through one of his books, and he's got want, don't want. Tony Robbins has got a version of it. So making a list of things you can't stand, and instead of giving that the focus, using that as the launching point to go, this is what I really want. Then focusing on that, visualizing, mental rehearsal. Athletes do mental rehearsal all the time.
Oh, I remember in Little League basketball, I remember hearing about studies that had been done where they took a group of guys and they took them into a gym and they had them shoot free throws.
Yeah.
And they would have them each shoot 10 free throws and see how many they did. And then they'd take another group and they'd have them sit in a room and just visualize shooting free throws and making them. And then they would have them, I guess the first group went out and practiced first, and then I don't know how long they practiced for, but then they shot 10 free throws. And then the other group visualized it in a room.
They did the mental rehearsal.
And then they went and shot their free throws, and the percentage was exactly the same.
Yeah. Because you're actually seeing it happening in front of you. And so, I mean, there's so many layers to the law of attraction and understanding it. And that's what I do as a profession. I started a business called TBT Coaching with my wife to start teaching people not how to use it as a law of prosperity, but as a big warning of, look, those thoughts that you're having, those fears, Darth Vader says to Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi, your thoughts betray you. Your thoughts are betraying you. And just as much as I didn't want to have Rhonda Byrne telling me back in 2005 that the reason my life was a big old steamy pile of shit was because of my thoughts and my focus, that's why a lot of people don't want to read about it. But this is kind of a big a big warning of get it together. Get your thoughts together instead of, and look, not to say that you don't have a reason to be focused on negativity. Life can be a bitch.
Well, and I was going to say, I think the big problem is that our society is kind of trained to focus on the negative.
Well,
And
it's
so
a paradigm that, yeah, like I picked up from my parents. My parents were big complainers. My parents were big complainers. My parents had a bad relationship with money.
I don't know that my parents were big complainers, but I always talk about how my mom was such a worrier.
Yeah.
And like she was always worried about what could go wrong or what might happen. And I noticed that in myself. And so, again, it's just about training yourself and refocusing on things that you want to have happen instead of things that you don't want to have happen, and seeing the difference that makes.
I wish I could show you guys what that vision board looked like back in 2013 that I made, but Taylor, my oldest son, did a project in school about the law of attraction, and he took it in, and he lost it. But I'm telling you, like 90% of the things that were on that vision board manifest. New car, turntable, new computer. Jen and I got those trips. We went to Hawaii for free. The company I worked for sent us to Hawaii. We got to go to Hawaii for like 5 days together. We went to New York City that year, met up with you, went to the Hudson River and saw One Republic perform. Got to see Pearl Jam 4 times that year. 3 of them on the rail, right in front of Mike McCready, right there. Got to go to NASCAR. That was on my vision board. But one of the big things that I put was that I wanted to live a life of gratitude. I was flying home and I was reading through a Southwest magazine. There was this big image and it said, live a life of gratitude. And I thought, well, I make it a vision board. I don't know what the hell that means to live a life of gratitude, but that sounds like something you should put on a vision board. And I would definitely say since then, that has definitely become much more of my focus, and being able to look back and go, so many of the things, my divorce, getting sent home from our mission, so many of those things came from that subconscious use of the law of attraction. So to that viewer that warned us that it's a prosperity doctrine, it's not a prosperity doctrine. It's a wake the fuck up doctrine, and start being aware of what you're focusing on, because when you're worrying, you are pulling those situations into your vibration. When you are afraid, when you are fearful, if that has become your dominant response to life, there's a reason why some of that shit keeps happening over and over. And you know what? It takes work. I mean, it's 2020. It's 7 years since I made that vision board. I'm still not where I want to be, but holy cow, so not where I used to be.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us are. So just to wrap this up, so I was going to say that along with Michael O'Shea's book, you talked about The Secret, and The Secret's probably, I haven't actually ever, I don't know, that I've watched the
If you've
video.
watched the movie, it's on Netflix. It's
But
the same
that
thing.
probably does a little bit more in terms of explaining the whole idea of thoughts become things. But the 2 books I always recommend are, like I said earlier, the Law of Attraction by Michael O'Shea, and then Rhonda Byrne's The Magic.
Yeah.
Those 2 together, and the fact that it's not, they both put you in a position to start acting upon the Law of Attraction as opposed to just reading information about it.
And we didn't really go into the magic a whole lot. Don't worry, there's no sorcery, there's no witchcraft or wizardry or anything like that. It's about gratitude. That's all the magic is about. And the magic, gratitude is like the cheat code to the law of attraction.
Yeah, and so what I was going to say is if you aren't that familiar with the Law of Attraction and want to learn a bit about it, those are the 2 books that I would really recommend reading, and I'm sure there's others out there, but they're not very long books. They're easy reads.
So easy.
And
Michael O'Shea's book was, like, I remember Jen checked it out from the library, and we still to this day don't know why she did, because she wasn't in that headspace. But Jen checked it out at the library. She fell asleep reading it, fell in my lap. I picked it up, and in about 45 minutes, I read about halfway through the book. Then I remember I had a flight the next morning, and I finished the book on that flight and just felt really... I felt like that book came to me at the right time. The right changes happened. It's not just a prosperity. It is... You actually have so much control in your life because the only thing you can control is your thoughts. And if your thoughts affect your emotion, and your emotion affects your vibration, and if your vibration is what is attracting things into your life, you have all the power in the world. You've got that control. It just takes practice. And that's,
And that's what I like about those books, is that they both help you start getting that practice started. So again, The Law of Attraction, Science of Attracting More of What You Want and Less of What You Don't by Michael O'Shea, and The Magic by Rhonda Byrne. We've been working with the Law of Attraction and coaching, especially you, for a while now with the Law of Attraction. So if you have any questions or anything, let us know. Moving forward, we're looking forward to another episode next week.
Next week we're filming The Underground.
We're going to be filming the next episode of The Underground. So we've got to get to a point where we're doing both probably, though, I guess. Because we should be having...
When we start getting the viewers up. When we start getting to that point where we're like, holy shit.
Anyway, on shows, whatever. On upcoming releases of Going Deep, we're going to talk about aliens. We're going to talk about...
We're going to get into some heavy shit.
We're going to get into deep stuff, but we're just trying to ease it.
Our main conspiracy dude's not here tonight.
Sean is definitely the main conspiracy dude, and so
he might be watching. We have 5 viewers.
He better be watching.
I know 2 of those are you and me right here. So there's 3 people out there watching. If you're watching right now, what's up? Thanks for watching.
Sean, are you watching? If you're watching,
you should comment, Sean. We'll wait.
Sean, you son of a bitch. Anyway, we've gone longer than we've anticipated these episodes going, but that's all right. Again, hit us up if you have any questions about Law of Attraction. And till next time, we'll see you on Going Deep Underground.
We will see you. Hang on a second. You said that too fast. I was going to get some music on here. Here we go. All right. I'll turn it back up. And I'll press play. Somebody's playing Liquid Mind upstairs.
So instead of Pearl Jam, you get Liquid Mind.
So let's just go out.
I mean, that kind of goes towards...
It's kind of the same vibe, but...
I was going to say the same vibe as Pearl Jam. I was going to say it kind of goes along with the Law of Attraction.
Well, that's what I was saying. The Law of Attraction.
Bye, everybody.
That vibe.